Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're looking forward to presenting 3 different case studies to you of some pretty cool agritourism businesses and talk to you about their agritourism journeys.
So we won't take too much of your time. Just want to introduce ourselves. My name is Trevor, Jonas, Benson.
And I'm Caroline Morrow.
And we work for a company called Bannikin Travel and Tourism. We do tourism development and PR, primarily within the niche tourisms, agritourism being one of those. And we've had the opportunity to work kind of all over the world. We work mostly domestically on our strategy and research work. We do a lot of PR with international operators, and we're looking forward to sharing some of our experience with you today.
Before we jump into the project itself, we wanted to talk a bit about the inspirations or motivations for why we wanted to look at this project. So one thing that we've been noticing, and from hearing all these other presentations yesterday, is this growing awareness and interest in agritourism generally. And we've noticed this in our projects. So with visitors being more interested in where their food comes from and connecting with those people and places that grow their food, but also a growing interest on the part of destinations and regions who are looking at agritourism and wondering if there's potential for economic development and other community benefits. Another thing that also inspired this was in 2018 when we attended the first International Congress on Agritourism in Bolzano. We realized just how many definitions of agritourism there are out there and how many different approaches there are. And with these 2 things in mind, we wondered, okay, we're always talking to all these businesses about projects, but what if we sat down and talked a little bit more in depth? So what does this mean from the perspective of the businesses themselves? And also, how can this apply for regional governments and destination organizations to support agritourism development?
So from a methodological standpoint, we have the pleasure of doing a lot of research through our project work. Oftentimes that involves multiple methods. We do tons and tons of interviews, tons of surveys, focus groups, virtual, in-person, table talks. With this particular project, we were most interested in connecting more in a meaningful way through a kind of focused structured interviews or semi-structured interviews, I should say, which we kind of co-facilitated. We also did some desk research, and then we followed up for some of the quantitative data with a bit of a online questionnaire. So this was kind of a bit different for us than our typical process, where we want to spend more time with select businesses who we kind of selected, I should say, kind of through our network, through the work that we've been engaged in, through people that we know, and just with an interest in kind of selecting a diversity of businesses and those that kind of are represented across the world. More specifically, we had the pleasure of connecting with Tim through our work with Seed Lab Tasmania at Coringa Farm. We had the pleasure of connecting with Mirta, who's located in just kind of near Bolzano, actually in northern Italy, at Agricola Foradori, and with Anna, who's located in Scotland, kind of on the east side near Dundee at Gardswell Farm. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to start by giving a quick overview of the case studies, and then we'll dive into some of the findings that we can pull out. But the first farm that we want to talk about is Gardswell Farm. So it was established in 2011, and although it is multi-generational and the family had been farming before that, and in 2017, they started doing agritourism. So you can see there were a few years there before the pandemic, but then the pandemic kicked off. It's 170 acres or 69 hectares, and they get a fair number of visitors at almost 12,000. So some of the activities that they offer are animal interactions. They have beautiful sheep here and goats. And then they also have on-farm accommodations that, if you look at their Instagram, it's really stunning, highly recommend, beautiful farm stays. And then another option that they offer are weddings and events.
With Foradori, so this is a farm it's a vineyard and estate winery. It's almost 100 years old. Mirta's mother was kind of a pioneer in the biodynamic wine movement. And they were primarily non-visitor facing, so kind of trade facing, wholesale facing, or food service facing for many, many years. They started to kind of face the visitor around 2012, where they're kind of opening up their high quality product to more of an in-person experience, if you will. They're a smaller farm comparatively to the others that we looked at, and smaller operation with 77 acres. And they have very limited number of visitors each year, primarily because of their size. When it comes to their offering, they have kind of a blend of, or an extension of their wine-based business, where they're offering opportunities to kind of connect with where the wine's being grown, but also with the people behind it. They have Bar Rural, which is kind of a pop-up or semi-permanent, I guess it's a seasonal business that's more food service facing. It operates a few times a week. And then they've started to introduce agriculture or vegetable growth in between their vines. And along with the hens that they have, they've got 25 layers. They sell these biodynamic vegetables and these eggs at a farm stand.
And then last but not least, we have Coringa Farm. There's Tim, everyone. So established in 1969 and definitely a pioneer when it comes to agritourism development. So in 1984, they started with agritourism, 770 acres or 312 hectares. And of the businesses that we spoke with, they received the most visitors, so 13,500. And just want to take a pause to admire this photo. So some of the activities they offer include animal interactions. They also have beautiful farm stay options, farm tours, and some food and drink.
So one of our areas of interest and kind of points of inquiry was in why these businesses chose agritourism, what led them to kind of pursue this as a diversified use of their lands. And these, I should say, these are not mutually exclusive responses that you're seeing on the slide. There's a lot of overlap in the discussions, but some of the things or highlights that we picked up was that for Coringa Farm, for Tim, this was an opportunity to build resilience into its operation, as well as to extend employment and keep employment within the family on the farm. With Foradori, there was an opportunity really to close that production loop, really to kind of focus on the educational side of the product that they had, which was very, very high quality. And at the time, and it still remains the case, is primarily being exported into international markets. So it's to connect locals to that process. And then similarly for Guardswell, it was about really focusing on connecting people to the place, to the family, and the processes behind the food and the product that they produce. But also they kind of had a side, or they still have a side interest, and that is generating enough revenue to contribute to important non-for-profit initiatives that will help to kind of preserve the lands that they call home.
And building off those motivations, so there's some ideas of the benefits that these businesses might receive from beginning agritourism and that they can extend to others, but sometimes there are benefits that come up that weren't expected. So we wanted to explore both of these when we were chatting with the businesses. So from Guardswell Farm, something that stood out in our conversation was how getting going with agritourism provided enough additional revenue to do more sustainable farming. And that wasn't something that I personally was expecting, but it was a really interesting opportunity to use agritourism to improve farming. And then from Coringa Farm, we talked about the family employment on farm, but as businesses grow, also there's opportunities for broader rural employment to employ people in a bigger community. And then from Foradori, because they started off only doing wine tastings for business to business, people coming to the winery, once they expanded, they were able to get that direct to consumer interaction and get feedback from their customers, which they hadn't had an opportunity to do before. And as they grew and they were not just doing wine, but doing cheeses and vegetables as well, they were also starting to meet with consumers who were more local and lived in the community where they're based.
When it came to the challenges, so through kind of the conversations we had, what was interesting in those challenges that were identified by these owner operators is that there was kind of consistency or themes within them, and that workforce, specifically kind of difficulties around staffing, finding the right staff, keeping the right staff, was something that kind of thread through all of these case studies. Similarly, There was also kind of a mismatch between where government support was being directed, specifically in the case of Forradori, as well as Coringa Farms, whether or not it's going to support kind of new entrepreneurs and new business, or it's going to kind of more the industrial system, if you will, in the case of Forradori. There wasn't necessarily a feeling or sentiment, or positive sentiment around government support for existing and successful agritourism operations. Some things that were quite interesting, kind of specifically around the staffing difficulties when it came to Guardswell Farm, was that these are not always associated with things that are or activities on the farm itself. Sometimes they're related to more infrastructural challenges. Having staff have access to transportation to get to the farm was noted as one particular challenge. Something else that was quite interesting was just kind of the need or the challenge that, more system shocks, things like COVID-19, had on some of these businesses, and the need to really kind of meet those head on and kind of assess where it is that that business kind of fits within kind of the future, which is anticipating more of these kind of shocks.
And with those challenges and benefits and motivations in mind, we were really keen to talk about what that means for the future. So with all of the businesses, we asked them their hopes and aspirations for the agritourism industry generally, and also for their businesses themselves, where they see things going in the future. And for Coringa, who had a large focus on international visitors before the pandemic, pivoting and looking into special interest groups. So that could be things like, or groups like birders and bushwalkers, and also offering bespoke events and different ways to connect with the local community through the offering. With Forradori, it's an interesting case because they have structural limitations because their cellar is only so big, they only have so much land, and they don't plan to produce more and more wine. So thinking about how this winery can continue to grow long-term, agritourism offers this new way that they can continue to employ a growing number of family members and diversify the business. So that could be through potentially one day offering accommodations or continuing to close that loop with their different offerings and produce and production that they're doing. So that is for Forradori. And then for Guardswell, one thing that was interesting is we talked about how agritourism can potentially fund farming and make that more sustainable, but also looking at ways that certain aspects of agritourism can fund other aspects, because obviously some types of agritourism activities draw in more revenue, potentially weddings, and they're looking at, if we have these weddings, will that allow us to hire a full-time chef that could then offer experiences for the guests who are staying in the accommodation? So that was a really interesting way at looking how you can balance those two sides.
So some kind of concluding thoughts, or some of our takeaways, if you will, is the fact that diversification or on-farm diversified use of lands through agritourism can definitely build resilience into business. So I know I spoke to someone last night who had a situation with a bumper crop, reliant on retailers to be purchasing product. Oftentimes kind of diversifying the use of the lands can kind of separate or unhandcuff the business from that reliance on kind of a bigger supply chain, if you will. Certainly employment opportunities is something that we picked up, and really as a takeaway, we know that, keeping family members on farm is key, and not having, those leave the farm simply to generate income to be able to kind of run the farm. Agritourism can bring, people back to the farm, and can also bridge generational gaps. One of the things that was kind of most interesting, and when we did this research and talking to operators who kind of had to kind of navigate through and overcome the perturbations of the pandemic, was the fact that agritourism is particularly uniquely two-facing, so that it's very appealing to both domestic travelers as well as to kind of high-yield international visitors. So that kind of mix, or that ability to attract both, is very unique to the agritourism trade. Something that was overwhelming, you saw, the pictures were not just hand-picked sexy pictures. They're just happen to be pictures of the product that we were exposed to through these conversations, which is extraordinarily high quality product. The experiences in their own right are all world renowned. These are all amazing businesses. And I think that's setting the bar really high. You know, our takeaway is the fact that agritourism, you know, needs to keep that high standard. You know, it is still a developing industry in many, many countries, many destinations. And for that reason, that need to kind of assure quality and kind of keep standards very, very high is even more important as people, you know, start to learn about this and have an interest in connecting with their food places and the people behind them.
And we're going to open, obviously, things up for questions, and hopefully we can have a good conversation because there are a lot of us in here. But some of the questions that we're thinking about, and we don't have answers to now, and maybe some of you do, but we're curious what can be done in terms of at the destination level. How can destination organizations help to support the agritourism industry to drive destination development through agritourism? And at the same time, what does that mean from the industry side? How can businesses come together and work with their regions and each other to develop agritourism? So thank you everyone for joining us. We have our emails here and feel free to get in touch. And yeah, we'd love any questions.
Questions, can you please go to the microphone so that people online can also hear the question?
Trevor, that you told there are problems in staffing. The staffing problems mainly for the farming activities or the agritourism activities?
Thanks for the question, Rohana. It's our understanding it was specific to the agritourism. That was kind of the focus of the question, was the agritourism side of the business.
But some of those transportation issues would make it difficult to get any staff. Yeah. So, but definitely more agritourism.
Quiet bunch.
Well, I have a question from online. Carla asks, what do you define as a destination in your field?
Yeah, I'd say it's destinations intangible. It's a manifestation of a group of individuals and businesses that come together under a shared identity to attract visitors.
And in terms of geography, that can be as small as a tiny town, as big as a country, but it's very context dependent too.
Can be cross-regional, can go beyond jurisdictions.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, hey.
That was fast. I saw that one of the destinations or farms that you talked about did its own marketing. It decided not to be listed. And could you say something more about how each of these actually attracts their visitors from?
Yeah, I can. Sure. Some of those. So for the business that decided not to use third parties to market, they were starting smaller and they wanted to maintain control of their brand. So it was a slower growth, but then they were able to get featured in some magazines, and they had a few bigger opportunities to get noticed. So that was one of the key ways. And then they really leveraged social media. So I mentioned Gardwell Farm and their Instagram account. Suggest you look at it. It's really great. And they built up their marketing and awareness largely through that.
And just to add, like, I think anybody who attended Tim's talk yesterday kind of was kind of privy to the fact that he puts in a really concerted effort with the travel trade, specifically with the Asian markets, China now moving to Japan. So to attract that, I think, you know, Tim, I probably can't speak to the energy and effort that you put into that, but I think it's a serious exercise to attract that international visitor.
And then the last one was Foradori. So that's an interesting case because they are a winery that's really well known, especially in biodynamic winemaking. When they first started, a lot of the people who they're connected to in their network already wanted to come because this is a winery they had been wanting to interact with. So on that side, it was easy for them to get people to visit. As they started to expand their agritourism offering, though, into the cheeses and the vegetables as well, they were targeting, especially because a lot of this happened around COVID, more local markets. So that again was a lot of focus on social media and building up awareness. Of course, sometimes people would come for the tours and the tour would be full that day or wouldn't be in the right language and they couldn't attend. So for example, that Barurale where they would sit outside and be able to taste some of the wines, international visitors would be attending that as well.
I guess the last comment was just one of our key takeaways was the product, like part of that marketing mix, the high quality product is a big sticking point for all of these businesses. It's a hyper focus around that quality product and the rich stories and intangible culture that kind of wraps around that product. And I think that's what allows these businesses to choose their other channels in order to market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
The remote is
It's on the top right there.
oh, this really, I've never seen anything like this before.
The down is forward.
Okay.
And the top is backwards.
Okay, thank you. I'm Shermain Hardesty. I am a retired faculty member from University of California, Davis. And let's see, I used to be the director of the small farm program, which is how I got really engaged with agritourism. So let's see, down. Oops. Down here. Okay. Brief overview, what I'm going to be talking about, give you some context and then talk about processed products. Use that awkward term because it's not just about edible food products, but also inedibles like flowers and sheepskins, those other types of processed products. And then I'll talk about these 3 case studies, which you'll hear some of the similar things that our previous people just talked about in these case studies, and then give you some conclusions. Okay, so for our small farm program, we defined agritourism as any income generating activity conducted on a working farm or ranch for the enjoyment and education for the visitors. So that's a fairly narrow description. According to the USDA's agricultural census, there were 1,130 farms in California that did agritourism in 2017, which is less, about 50% less actually, or well, 40% less than in 2012. But their revenues had actually increased during that time period. So we're averaging about $74,000 per farm, but there's a lot of diversity between very small operations, say under $5,000 up into the millions. And I'm going to give you 3 case studies that are diverse in terms of their largeness too. Okay, so our most popular form of agritourism are the farm stands. And then some other ones that we have a lot going on with would be the farm dinners. Corn mazes are very popular. Pumpkin patches are another one for entertainment. We get into educational activities for all kinds of classes and tastings of various types of products. We have farm stays in different forms, including glamping and cabins and yurts and, and the works. And then recreation as well. So it's a very diverse kind of offerings that we have in California. Okay, so processed products. My hypothesis, I guess you could say, was that processed products fit very well with agritourism and include products just like the specialty foods as well. And then the juices, the oils, and then the inedibles, such as the dried flowers, the fibers, the wreaths, lotions, the works. So there's a lot of diversity involved. And the marketing of these processed products can then I hypothesize there are financial benefits, obviously, and then also other benefits to the farm and to the community. So what are they? Here's my first case study. It's called Morse Mandarin Farms. And it's Glenda and John Morse had 20 acres that they bought in 1998 or 1988. And in Butte County, which is really kind of a nowhere land in the sense that it's 150 miles from San Francisco and 75 miles from Sacramento. So it's not exactly just a easy tourist kind of attraction. And they were working for the state of California at the time that they bought the land, and lived in, they ended up living on their farm, built their small shop, and they cleared the acreage and planted citrus trees. That's their whole overall focus. Okay. And then they started selling the mandarin oranges after the trees were maturing in 2005. And then they got into doing tours as well as part of their agritourism, as well as they had a farm stand, obviously, that they were selling most of their fruit at. Okay, so then they decided to get into marketing the specialty food products. The motivation for that was that consumers really like beautiful produce that's not marked up with scratches or anything. And so they were basically taking that cull or second grade fruit and processing it into products, edible products. And at that time, they were using a co-packer, which means it's a food processor. And they took their fruit there, it was about 50 miles away, and they were using the co-packer for producing their products. Okay. Then in 2013, we had the California cottage food law get into effect, and it allowed farms and anybody else really to be involved in processing what they call non-hazardous foods, which are basically high acid, so that you're not going to be, there's not much possibility of food safety problems. And so, and those products can then be sold, it must be sold in actually a home kitchen, and then they can be sold through grocery stores or direct to consumers. So, and oops, okay, try that again. Okay, so then Glenda started making cottage foods as well. And so on the left side, you have their co-packer products, which are not as non-hazardous. And then they have jams and jellies are I'm sorry, the other ones are the slightly more hazardous. And then on the right side, we have the cottage food products that are non-hazardous, basically jams and jellies. Okay, so, and they were doing well, but they were getting into their 70s, late 70s in age. And so health problems, they ended up having to remove their mandarin trees because it was just too much effort for John in particular. And they still had some oranges and other types of citrus. And they're selling that still at the farm stand. It's on an honor system, so people know what the price is for that bag of 9 or 10 pounds of fruit, and they just put the money into their slot there, and that's, you know, they're relying on people being very honorable in making and paying for their fruit. So, and so now it's become a very limited agritourism operation. Okay, that's the first case. Case number 2 is a bit more complicated, and it's the Linds have the fruit bin, and they're down south on the coast of California, over 200 miles south of San Francisco, and also more than 200 miles north of LA. So again, they're not in a major metropolitan area. And they moved there from Denver in 1976 with their very young children and bought 23 acres. And John had a background in agriculture, managing the greenhouses while he was an English graduate student in Kansas. So, and then they just started learning all about farming, basically. So it was quite a challenge for them. And they ended up, they planted some flowers, they planted some vegetables, and then they talked to one of the University of California farm advisors who said, well, why don't you try growing olala berries? And olala berries, is anybody here familiar with olala berries? Probably one person, yeah. A cross between raspberries and blackberries. And they're delicious, but they're not grown very often. Okay, so they planted the olala berries, and they had started doing a U-pick and the farm store, but they also realized that they had to make some changes, and because they just weren't getting enough traffic. And so they were also having problems with a insect problem that actually made reduced the ability for the berries to get full sugar in their crops. So Renee started making olala berry pies, and then started selling them at their farm store and also at events. They would go to any kind of farm event and sell their pies there. And then they started getting tourists, because Cambria it's not a big time tourist attraction, but it's got a great coastline. And so people started to hear about the farm, and they were buying the pies. And then Renee actually started a mail order program. Okay, come on. So this is a current picture of their farm store. It hasn't really changed that much over the years. And then you've got what their sort of a view of what their farm looks like now. Okay, oops, go forward. Then there was getting so much traffic to their farm store for the pies that 3 wealthy neighbors started to complain about the traffic levels that were going on, because it's just a 2-lane road outside of the Cambria area. And then it took about 5 years, and the county finally decided that the Linds had to have an off-farm location for doing their processing and also to sell some of their product. But they ended up also having the farm store still attract consumers to see the farm. So and then they started expanding into various other products, all kinds of things that you can see. And so even getting into the baking mixes and vinegars and so on. Their 3 children were very involved in the farm. And then in 1988, they actually started a restaurant in College Town further south called San Luis Obispo. And that was an hour drive away. And then in 1989, they got a friend who actually gave them or loaned them a lot of money on very favorable circumstances in Cambria. And then, so then they decided in 2002 that they just closed the San Luis Obispo restaurant because it was, and really focus on what's going on in Cambria. Okay, but 2006, the fire destroyed the Cambria restaurant. And so they decided, while they were going into the process of rebuilding, that they would just also have just a bakery store, a much smaller operation. And so they called that Easiest Pie. And then they also started a gourmet goods operation store as well, very close to where the restaurant was. Then also they lost their son to suicide, the oldest son, and they ended up raising his 2 sons. And then they finally reopened the restaurant at the December of 2007. Then in 2009, they even got bigger by getting out of food products and also doing non-food store. And their restaurant was doing well, but they decided to hire a new chef to become a little more diverse and seasonal in what they were doing with their products. And then another interesting thing, 2013, they started producing for Knott's Berry Farm. Anybody familiar with Knott's Berry Farm? So it started as a farm in Southern California, and then they were doing berries and other types of jams. So then eventually Knott's Berry Farm got bought, or the product line got bought by Smucker's, and Smucker's wasn't really happy with how they were producing the Knott's Berry Farm products. So they got Linz to produce all of the Knott's Berry Farm preserves. And that gave employment, year-round employment for 35 people. So pretty dramatic. So there's the restaurant up on top, easy as pie. And then the other store, I can't remember what it's called. I didn't go to that store, okay. Okay, and this is some of the product line that they have in the bakery that is attached to the restaurant. So it's a very large offering of products. Their farm only produces 3% of the olala berries that they're using. So they've got both the their own production, other olala berries, and so forth. And since I've only got 3 minutes left, I'm going to start squeezing through this. So they're selling a lot of frozen pies, but then they started running into, well, they've got, 110 employees altogether. And then they closed their farm store when COVID started. And then their liability insurance was canceled because there's a lot more incidents in the area for wildfire dangers. So then they grew from 3,000 square feet in terms of processing space to 20,000. So then there's other kinds of difficulties that I can't go through right now. So in other words, there's a lot of employment that they have going on. Their second generation, the grandsons are involved now very heavily in the business. And so is their daughter. Now, my last farm is the Full Belly Farm, which is closest to where I live. And it's a very large, 400-acre organic farm, founded in 1985. Again, it's not in the middle of any kind of metropolitan area. And they produce a whole variety of products. They first started doing agritourism when they started hosting a festival called Host Down at the end of the fall season. And one of the partners, Full Belly partners, Drew Rivers, decided to do a wreath making workshop. And later on, she started hosting group tours for kids at the farm. And then they got into kids camps, which are like a 5-day event, and the kids actually stay at the farm overnight. And then they're very popular. And what the kids camps did was they gave them cash flow because they got registrations in the winter time. And that really helped out because their farming products were a little less, there wasn't that much going on with the farming. And they had a farm stand for about 10 years, but it's remotely located, so it didn't get that much in sales. So then they decided to develop the farm kitchen for supporting their son, Ammon, and his wife, his Jenna. And Ammon had been doing some chef working in San Francisco restaurants. So they first started doing just processed foods at a Grange facility, but they were hauling all kinds of produce from the farm to the Grange, and that was becoming a hassle. So they had some money that they could invest, and they decided to build the kitchen, which was a 2-year process, and it was completed in 2015. They use it for serving dinners, monthly dinners. I've been to several of them. They're delightful, and they have weddings there occasionally as well, and other special events and pizza times. So that's what the whole building looks like. They live on the upper floor, and the kitchen, everything is on the bottom floor there. And that's a picture of one of their dinners, very well attended. So they've got a whole array of shelf-stable food products, and they're getting very, broad in their product lines, including now they've gotten into baked goods and preserves as well. They also do flowers. They've been doing that ever since Drew started way long ago. And the flowers are then used to make wreaths as well as sold fresh at the farmer's market. And also they sell them at their CSA, Community Supported Agriculture subscription programs, and 3 farmers markets that they sell at, They also sell these products at their farm shop and also some local food cooperatives. So there's a diversity in their marketing of their products. And they provide many benefits, I believe, these processed products. And you've got the slow months, the revenue, you've got the use of product that would otherwise be basically unsellable. And then the interesting part is government support. You hear about other countries providing support, especially in Europe. This is the only case that I had of somebody having government support, and it was a fairly small value-added producer grant from USDA for about $50,000 to help them with their labeling of their products. And so in conclusion, I would say that agritourism can really have a positive benefit from having these processed products added on to the general agritourism operations. And you've got the financial benefits, and then you've got the other farm benefits, because you have consumers who see products at the grocery store or at the farmer's market, and that then takes them back and say, okay, I want to learn more about this farm. I'll go and go to a farm tour or so I'll send my kid to the kids camp. And also you've got an improvement in their availability of more employment opportunities for the other younger family members involved. So that's basically, I think, all I've got to say. Yeah, and then there's community benefits with employment opportunities for the community, especially in the case of Lynn's, and also educating the public about agriculture, which is one of the main reasons that we started agritourism in the first place. Run out of time, right?
I am not very tall. How are you all doing? Good. I'm Annie Baggett. I am the agritourism marketing specialist with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And I have two colleagues that I hope can chime in. Julie, can you unmute yourself? Julie is from yellowDog Creative. She is one of our private partners. She is our app developer and designer and created the user experience. And then Victoria Patterson is our statewide app administrator. We're currently basically a team of 4, 2 private partners, and then 2 of us with the Department of Ag, one being a temporary employee. So basically, I did some polls for this session. And, you know, the answer was, gosh, marketing is hard, right? And yesterday, Beth in the opening session was talking about, you know, how important it is to support farmers, that, you know, economic development is strongly connected to what we're doing. You know, we're supporting the farmers, we're easing the marketing burden for farmers. And so the why of this project was very much centered around easing that burden, how, where, and when farmers are doing business in real time. So the presenter ahead of me was showing you some specific farms, and they're all different, right? And they're all making money in different ways. So the challenge that I had when I joined the department in 2014 was I asked myself, okay, what's the inventory every single day of the over 46,000 farms that we have in North Carolina? Now, granted, all of them are not welcoming visitors, but they all have revenue streams and we need to support them as a department. So that was the big why. And, you know, in 2014, digital tools weren't a big deal yet, but, you know, I was like, okay, let's look down the road. And Julie and I had known each other for a long time. And I just asked her, I said, you know, would you consider teaming with me to figure out a digital tool? So here we are in 2022. And basically it connects farms based on their revenue streams. So local farms and fisheries, pick your own. They are the common denominator revenue streams for all farms in North Carolina, and maybe for y'all too. Farmers markets. So farmers markets are often the first place that young farmers, that new farmers go to sell their wares. So that's really important. Local food and drink. So like, the restaurants, the local shops selling on farm, where the consumer is, going directly to the farmer and investing their dollars there. And that way the farmer can capitalize on those funds. So shopping local, so it could be, any shop, restaurant where there are value-added products offered, wine, honey, jams, jellies. Farm stays and lodging is a very significant opportunity for farms today. And especially in North Carolina, we have the coast and the mountains in our state. And so people flocked to our state, especially during the pandemic, and that trend has continued. There are also opportunities for folks to create their own trips and navigate from the app. And we have suggested itineraries included as well. And then there's an opportunity for folks to include special events. So we're not going anywhere on this. Yeah. Well, there we go. I have to push it really hard. So it's a direct to consumer opportunity. And I feel like that's super important. When you talk with farmers, they talk about, I need to diversify my revenue stream. I need to make more money. I am, we're figuring out how to pay for inputs, for labor, all of that. So direct to consumer works really well. So how does it work? So the consumer services part of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. So this is very much a consumer-driven tool. And I think that's something that like departments of agriculture, at least the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, really didn't focus as much on as they do the farmers themselves. And I'm like, well, what farmers need, and when you talk to them, they'll say, what's your greatest need? And they'll go marketing. And I was like, well, tell me more. And if you ask a farmer, do you have enough customers? They're going to say no. So how do we connect them to more? How do we get more customers in front of them when they're selling, when they're offering, when it's in season for them? And when you have that many farms in the state, it's going to be really hard to do unless you have some sort of a system to do so. So a user is able to navigate using these tiles. So all push button technology. Again, they can search by product in the app. So, someone recently was looking for pawpaws in our state. Do you all know what pawpaws are? So it's an amazing fruit that makes like a custard that tastes like creme brulee. But anyway, someone was looking for pawpaws and they could enter it in the search and they could find the 17 or the 23 or however many farms were offering pawpaws at the time and go and get them. It's been a great kind of for chefs, it's a great business to business kind of an app as well. It is location based. So when you download the app, the farms closest to you pop up. You can also search by interests. So, farm tours, farm animals, and then searching the suggested products. So, educating folks about what's in season is really, really important. We get a lot of calls at the department in December, and people are asking for strawberries in December, and it's really hard to deliver that. So we have the colorful bars at the top are suggested products. So this is just, a testimonial. This is one tool that farmers can use, that we created at the Department of Ag to help them, to help support them, to ease their marketing burden. So this particular blueberry farm just said, hey, we're excited to be a part of this program. And we have analytics that are connected to the app that let us know that when Sprinkles Blueberry Farm put in a push notification to let the public know, to let all of the app users know that they had a special, that they were open for U-Pick, that, it's this much, a box, it's this much a basket, a pint, whatever, then all of those folks that were users, we could tell how many clicked. And we do not know at this point how many people actually went to the farm, because it's not an e-commerce tool, it's a marketing tool. So our goal is to drive the consumer to those places, and then it's up to Sprinkles Blueberry Farm to sell them, to maximize that opportunity. So that's what we're doing if you look at it that way. So the push notifications are those mini billboards that go across, and these are some examples of them. Like I said, they could be seasonal pieces. Our previous speaker talked about farm to table dinners. That is a popular event. Special events that are listed in the app can be promoted through push notifications, and special events can be added to an individual's calendar through the app as well. So, each participating farm or asset has its own dedicated page. So this is an equitable product. So it doesn't matter if you're small, if you're medium, if you're large, if you're just starting out, everybody has the same place. Now, what will be different are the products that they're offering. So, that list at the bottom that shows the products and the relationships of products to other entities is, could be short. It could be very, very long and robust. You get a little bit of information about the farm, and there's push button technology to lead them to social media, to their website. You can call them. You can get directions to the farm. There are driving directions to each of them. There's also sponsorship opportunities within the app. So I'll talk with you a little bit more about that in a minute. This is another farm, and actually I think Carla is participating. Carla Patterson from Tweedledee Farm is participating in this event virtually. But her testimonial was, significantly increased interest in the farm and its products. Have sold direct to the consumer, one heifer since being on the app for a very short period of time. And I've had phone conversations and email inquiries about our farm products. Website visits from mobile phone calls have skyrocketed, and that happened really, really quickly. So it's one farm at a time getting these kinds of results, but this app is a collective of over 2,000 destinations within the app that let the public know what's happening in North Carolina. So how do we manage that content? I mentioned to you that we're a team of about 3.5. So that would be impossible to manage content that's ever changing. So actually our tech partner created a back-end website, which is very user-friendly, easy, and we train all of our app administrators statewide. So we are 100 counties in North Carolina. So there are an average of 2 app administrators per county. So that's a lot of people. Victoria has been responsible for training them and for just being there for technical support, whatever kind of support they need. But this backend website allows them to add the assets, to add all of that critical information. And it's basically, we start with a spreadsheet and upload that content into, the app technology. And then we're able to manipulate that, add photos. We can send text messages to the growers and producers, ask them what's changing, if their hours are changing. If you all are promoting farms, in your communities, you know how hard that is. So we have multiple ways to reach out to farmers so that we keep that content current. And that is probably that's our number one challenge, but that's also our number one opportunity. When you have really relevant current information, then you are able to get that out in the marketplace and you can really make a difference. So we now have a video, hopefully. So can you click on it or can I do it from here?
No, I'll have to click on it and then
Okay. So basically the video is, we're in a place now, and I'll give you just a little bit of history. The app basically was expanding in early 2020. We were in 12 early adopter counties, and we were working to expand to all 100 counties. So we're really quite new in terms of marketing this product. So this is a video that we produced this spring to promote farms and to promote the app and just really. So another piece of it, you'll see Linda Loveland. Linda Loveland was a WRAL anchor, and she shifted. She was from a farm, and she shifted to being the communications director for North Carolina Farm Bureau. So she is our spokesperson in this video that you
open. You got nothing to do.
Okay. You can start it.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's called the Visit NC Farms app. It'll take you all across the state, get out of the city, and see the best that North Carolina has to offer. Just plan your itinerary. You can go picking strawberries, you can go to a farmer's market, you can end up at a local brewery. It's all right there for you. Today, we're in Pitt County, experiencing some of the great things here.
When a person visits Home Place Strawberries, we hope they get a taste of farm life. But even more than that, we hope people just get away from the hustle and bustle of life. We grow strawberries for public picking and purchasing, but also this time of the year, we sell a lot of good geraniums, ferns, and a whole lot of hanging baskets. We have a children's playground. We serve ice cream, jams, and jellies that are made right here from stuff on the farm. And we also have a store where they can purchase other items as well. Visit NC Farms app is an app that puts people in line with the farm itself. In a lot of areas, no matter where you are, all you got to do is go to the app, and you don't never know how close you are to an event just like we have here.
Welcome to Dixon Avenue Farmers and Makers Market. At Farmers and Makers, you can find anything from art to food. We have honey, produce, locally grown flowers and plants. It's not your traditional farmer's market. We have some unique products like Jenny's Ugly Chocolates. Jenny has a sweet potato bonbon that recently won the Our State Made in North Carolina award. It uses North Carolina sweet potatoes, North Carolina pecans, and Covington vodka, which is the sweet potato vodka. We think it's important to promote the local farms, especially inside of a district like Dixon Avenue Arts District, because it allows a more visual storefront for farmers who don't often get that amount of visibility on their farms.
Welcome to Raising Grace Farm. We have pasture-raised beef, cattle, as well as we have a variety of flowers that we grow for cut flowers and U-Pick events here on the farm. In order to come to the farm for a U-Pick, you purchase a ticket online, and it reserves your time spot. And then when you come here, you pick as many flowers as you want, and you just pay by the stem and take them home and enjoy. In the spring, we have tulips and daffodils. This year we planted about 15,000 tulips here on the farm and about 1,000 different bulbs of daffodils. In the coming months, we will have sunflowers, some that are going to be just for taking pictures and photography, and then we'll have some that are specially for cut flowers, in addition to several colors of zinnias. The Visit NC Farms app highlights farms and other agricultural related businesses all across the state of North Carolina. So people from all the way in the mountains will be able to see a farm like ours here in the eastern part of the state.
Welcome to Local Oak Brewing Company. Local Oak Brewing Company is a very small little nano pub located right here in Winterville, North Carolina. We pride ourselves on making everything that we sell on tap, and when we run out of a recipe, we never brew it again. In craft beer, it's so important to have flavor-driven, unique beers. And the best way to accomplish that nowadays is to use the absolute freshest products that you can, like strawberries, blueberries, peaches, some of the stuff we grow here locally, and to use as much of them as you can absolutely afford to do. Because that's going to give your beer a lot of flavor, it's going to make you special, it's going to help you stand out from the competition a little bit.
You can find all kinds of great places like this on the Visit NC Farms app. Just go to visitncfarmstoday.com. You can download it there and get all the information you need, plan your itinerary, and see all the great places across North Carolina.
Thank you. Yay, video worked. So how about that Southern accent?
Why worry about losing your car keys when you can take matters into your own hands?
So we've got 1 minute here for me to wrap up. So, you know, authentic farms. Mario talked about it yesterday as a tour operator who, you know, has the chocolate making tours. You know, every farm is different. What they sell, what they offer is different. The personalities are different. This is about authenticity, and we're selling those experiences. So that's how we do it. There are numbers associated with the app. We track a lot. We track those push notifications. We track downloads. We track social media, screen views. What are the top products? Where folks are downloading from. It is an open sourced app, so you do not have to give us your email address. We just know where you download it from. We do not know any other information. We are working on perhaps a project where we can profile who the app user is. Tracking top products is really, really important. You know, I'm in the agriculture sector. So, you know, getting people connected to local food, and local food has never been more important to consumers, and they want it fresh, and they want that experience connected with it. So we created this project to be replicable, scalable, and you too could have, you know, a custom product. We did it the hard way. This is a custom app, and we continue to evolve and make it stronger and stronger based on the input from our growers and producers, like the ones you saw featured in the video, and also from our app administrators and our stakeholders across the state. Thank you so much for your time today.
Do you have time for a question? I have a question. I have a question for you if we have time.
Okay. Do you have time for a question?
Okay.
If you want to eat up a break time,
I won't do that. You all can leave. You all can leave if you want to. I'm gonna go ask her, but I want to ask her about how she got these app administrators across the state. Are they volunteers or?
Oh yeah. So okay. So basically, I came from the private sector as a salesperson in sales and marketing. And so how do you identify the leaders and the decision makers, you know, that could help make this happen? And so basically we started this project with no budget at all. So we had to find stakeholders. And so we created the framework. We knew what we wanted to do. And we knew that farmers, you know, they were supportive, but we had to figure out who was going to manage that content for us because we're a very small office. So county by county, I just drilled down and said, okay, who are the leaders in agriculture? Who are the leaders in economic development? So that could be chambers of commerce. And who are the leaders in tourism? So 85% of our app administrators are housed in agriculture. Now, that's a challenge for us as a marketing professional, because I really wish that there were more tourism people, because tourism people know how to promote destinations, right? They're inherently, you know, promotional type marketing professionals, where people in the ag space understand farming, which is really critical because those in the ag space really know farmers, have relationships with farmers, and most of our app administrators are housed in cooperative extension. Some are in soil and water, and some other, nonprofit groups. We've got some small associations, nonprofits that kind of work in the local food space. We have one local food council as a nonprofit that runs the app administration, and they do a great job. So basically, it's who are your leaders, and it's not easy work. We have a huge spreadsheet of how we manage that. And in recent times, a lot of those app administrators have shifted and changed. So we're really focused on, really making sure that our app administrators are trained appropriately. And we have a grant to help support them with marketing, with, basically we're taking them to marketing boot camp. Here's what you need to know. And there's branding packages and toolkits that everyone has at the local level as well. So it's not an easy thing, but we have the model, and it's working, and we're just now starting to promote it across the state. Yes.
So those administrators are responsible for all updates, like the companies don't have like a unique login to their page.
Exactly. So when I did a focus group with farmers were like, you know what, Annie, this is great. They pulled me aside and said, I'd even pay for this because I'm investing in social media right now. So for most of the counties, it's free. It's county decided, free or low cost, like, $5, $10. The app administrators or the farmers said, please do not ask me to create another login and another password. So having the app administrator is someone who can prompt to them. Now, in the app, if you download it and you push the info button will take you to a page where they can actually request an update. Hey, my farm store hours are shifting for fall. We're going to be open 7 days a week now rather than 5. They can send that, and an email goes directly to the app administrator, and they can make that happen. They work from their phones. I mean, a lot of our farmers prefer text, or they prefer not having to talk to anybody, really, honestly. And so we have to meet them where they are on that. Good questions.
My question is what kind of, or like an estimated upfront cost, because I know like continued costs would be different depending on how you set that up, whether it's administrator or staffers, but.
Yeah. So it is hard for me to just kind of give you a number, but in general, think about so the way we started this is for every county that joined, they paid $5,500 one-time fee for 50 assets. And then they paid, how much was maintenance for that a month? I guess $300 a month maintenance, $3,600 a year maintenance cost. If they wanted to add assets, that would be for additional 50 assets, it would be $1,000 one-time fee. So the maintenance is $3,600 after that first time. And I wrote for a grant to do a cost share. So that made it really easier for me to reach out to economic development, tourism, ag stakeholders and say, hey, we've got this product. I want to show it to you. And we went around the state until the shelter in place thing happened. And we went from 12 to 86 counties during the pandemic adopting it. And so truly the pandemic helped us with that because people were looking for local food and outdoor. And it gave us a place to do that. Media also picked it up. So we got a lot of earned media as well. So, the onboarding costs, it's not expensive. And we're working right now to, it's kind of one client, one county, one country, one state at a time. But think about how many assets you have. Like, you can look at those categories, you can dream up your own categories, but think about how many you have. And then it's like, between $5 and $10 probably per asset. And you could kind of do some rough math for figuring out. It's a whole lot cheaper than the multi-million-dollar quotes that I got when I first started thinking about this. So basically we did this, you know, spit and thread, or, you know, bale and twine and duct tape, as they say in the farming community. So thank you all so much for joining in. And this is a great conference, and I'm just grateful that you all are here.